It says live.
It says live.
Yeah. And it says
this is the very first test.
On my LinkedIn, it says Frederick's live. So on my other laptop, you can see us. Yeah, and there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, that should be because it's pre-recording before I post it. It's sharing, right, to make sure that the quality is okay.
Yeah, very good.
So welcome. This is our first LinkedIn Live, huh? That's a little interesting to see how that works. I probably keep on my glasses so I can see if there's anybody who's saying something.
Yeah.
Well, the last time I tried this, there was actually people who commented, but I was too focused on all the tech that I saw the comments afterwards. But now you're here to help me, then I'm trying to.
Well, in the true spirit of adventure, we're making this very agile, aren't we, and very unplanned. So we'll have to see if anyone comes along. But our conversation for today is impact of COVID on the insurance industry, just as a little bit of a test broadcast, right? So,
yeah, that's a very hot topic, of course. And I think when you there are many aspects of this impact, of course, because you have the business impact, but you also have the organizational impact. Because I think in the industry, and of course I'm generalizing now, but we will start to see the impact now and going forward, right? Because typically, this insurance is sold year by year. So it's only now when the renewals are coming that we'll start seeing the changes, in the sense that there's unfortunately a lot of companies who's gone out of business or who has chosen to reprioritize how they do insurance. So I think the renewal season is going to be extremely hard, basically for all lines of insurance. So that's one thing, of course, and then you have the knee-jerk, no, not the knee-jerk reaction, but the reaction of all the new business that you're used to coming in has, of course, already also been affected. But for the insurance industry, I think we'll see the issues coming from now on. And then it's a question if the insurers have prepared well enough to create a company around that is actually flexible enough to handle a change in demand for the insurance products.
Yeah, I mean, I think we wrote a white paper on this topic back in April, right? Just as COVID was breaking, and it was the first time you could see it was getting serious. And I think at that time there were a lot of unknowns, actually, right? A lot of unknowns about how really serious this disease was going to be and how long this disease was potentially going to last. But one thing that was very obvious then, and that's what we called out, was just the acceleration in change of consumer behavior, that massive jump in digital adoption that we've seen by consumers and by employees in the workplace. And that is only going to unwind a little bit, right? Because the secular trends around adoption of technology have been there for many, many years, but we've actually leapt ahead. We thought 2 years, some say 5 years. Doesn't really matter, because the reality is that it just makes it very clear that consumers are changing, and hence that forces change upon all industries. And of course, insurance has been slower than others in adoption of technology. So it puts the pressure on us to do work even harder, just to stand still, right? I mean, I think that's definitely one thing that's coming through very strongly.
But I think, and of course you're completely right. I think one of the issues here, and one of the things, and that was also what I was kind of referring to before, is that the insurers have gone digital, right? But what is it that they've gone digital with? And this is going to me be a key turning point for when you'll see the changes in market demands, because some insurance companies they went digital, but what they did is they digitized existing processes. So instead of a wet signature, they made a PDF with a signature, and that was good enough. They didn't take a look at how do we actually do things in the insurance company. they basically just took the old processes. So what many insurers they are seeing now is that, yeah, they can say that they're digital, but they haven't been able to optimize the way that they work. They haven't been able to, to free people to do sales, which is going to be important now. They haven't been able to make any changes in the organization because the people who are pushing the paper are are pushing PDFs, right? But the insurance company who took this and say, okay, there's no way we're just going to digitize what we have. We will actually look at it and redesign. So we also implement a smarter way of working. I think they will be better off in handling these changes that we will start see coming now.
Yeah, and it's for me, it reminds me of a parable, right? And I expect you've heard this parable about the story of the tortoise and the hare, right?
Yeah.
And I think when COVID hit, we're all hares, right? Everyone's herring around and sorting out what needs to be done to keep the lights on, right? What needs to be done, what needs to be digitized. And broadly speaking, I think a lot of people were hoping that this was, and we all were really, that it was only a short-term dislocation, and then we would get back to some sort of business as usual, right? And it's now very clear that isn't the case. And then actually then the strategy of the tortoise comes through, right? So those organizations that are taking a more strategic approach, which always takes longer at the start, right, to get right. I think that's what we're starting to see. And those winners are quite often the ones that you suddenly say, oh, where they come from? Well, actually, they spent a bit of time internalizing, building foundation layers before going on. And I think that's where we're at now, is realizing that it's the quick the hard work starts, right?
But the people that I just Praveen, thanks for watching. I can see that you're saying that digital signature with UAE pass that is correct, and that would work for the UAE obviously. But the point here is that even if you put in this digital signature and you don't change the way that you get the signature and how you send the signature and how many people who have to sign, then you're still just following your same old processes instead of thinking, okay, maybe we don't need 11 signatures, we can only need one, and then you will change the process and make the way that your company work faster. But of course the UAE process is fantastic. Hugh, I was just what you said here about the insurers who are actually thinking strategically about this, but with the people that you talk to in your network, what is your what do you think? Do you think they're doing that, or do you still think that many insurers are closing their eyes and hoping it's going to go back to some kind of normal?
I think like anything, I'm going to give a bit of a non-answer. I mean, I think it's a bit of a bell curve or normal curve, right? You've got the early adopters, you have the laggards as well. I think what is a little bit or what has changed a lot now is, I think you can see the end game. So particularly in distribution, in certain channels, that drop off in sales. Say if you look at bank assurance, the fact that there was zero physical footprint, no one was visiting branches in many countries around the world. It kind of gives everyone a view of what the end game of increasing digitization is, right? And it forces everyone to think that through and recognize that business models need to change. So I think now that argument and debate is over, and it now comes down to one of execution. And obviously strategy is still very important, but people really have to get going on this. And I think now people realize this. I think boards are going to start to put a lot of pressure on. But as usual, it's an industry. It can't change quickly, right? It's a big beast for a reason, and there's reasons why, good reasons why it is conservative, but it does need to get a little bit faster. And I think we'll see these things coming through in spades over the next 1, 2, 3 years. Right? I think everyone is taking it quite seriously.
Were you part of that ADI lesson with the students we had, I think 4 weeks ago, where I pulled up that poll I made as a part of another conference I was in? I remember I was part of a conference where we were talking about this, the need for business change. This was not necessarily insurers only, but it was for business leaders. And the poll came out with 50% of the business leaders, they didn't see a real need for change. Do you remember that one? Or maybe you weren't there that day.
I may have missed it.
I think
that does surprise me, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. And this was a poll. I think 170 something C-level people. They responded to this to the question of, do you think that there is a real need for change? Yes or no, basically. And 50% said no. 20% odd, they said of course, and the rest said yeah, to some extent. So I was really surprised by this. So I think, and maybe because you and I, we are a little on the edge on development and what's happening, right? So maybe there is actually a large share of people and companies who still thinks that, okay, whenever the restrictions are open and people can start flying again, then we go back to normal. I don't know, but it just really surprised me.
Yeah, and I think I find that hard to believe as well now. I think it may be that people are sort of still maybe a little bit reluctant to change, but that change is coming, and it's now there at the board level. And I think that's really important because in certain insurers, the tenure of CEOs is quite low, right? So if you have an average tenure of 3 years, that's not really enough to see through and embed down a serious digital transformation if you're an incumbent insurer, right? This type of thing will start to show fruit in 3 years, especially if you're looking at transforming your existing business, right? And as you know, that does take time. It takes multi-year commitment. And then you start to run. You can run faster and faster if you've got the right strategy, the right tech in place.
Yeah, and it maybe, yes, of course, the C-levels here were predominantly, or at least 70% were from the Middle East. And as you're saying here, the tenure is in the Middle East is much shorter in general. It's 2 years, right? So if you're going in and then you want to do changes in 2 years, then you will focus on profit maximization and cost cutting, basically, right?
Yeah, or you look to boost your revenue, right? You take short-term decisions around revenue rather than that fundamental transformation. But when you look at, I look at the, I guess the increasing maturity of those, what were new insurtechs a few years ago, right? Some of those are now starting to get quite significant scale. They're starting to show that the models they have are superior in terms of customer experience, superior in terms of being able to crush costs. And there's a reason where you see these early IPOs, and we all may say, well, how is it that Lemonade is valued so highly? How is it that Roots valued so highly? Well, this is the market, right, that is actually taking a view on the long-term attractiveness of these types of models, right?
But let's hope that continues.
Yeah. Well, it does.
I found it here if you want to take a look at it, right? So and you see this is the last point that caught me, right? No desire to change the status quo. but I think it's
And is that a collective funk that you've got there, where you ask that question, what is the biggest challenge to implementation? And then you say, actually,
this is
it's someone else that doesn't have a desire to change. I don't know.
So I found it surprising, right? No desire to change the status quo, but again, if they know they're here for a couple of years, right? Maybe they say it's fine. Let's not rock the boat and let's maximize our bonus and then go home. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and this is where the board comes in, right? The board has responsibility to set that long-term strategic direction. Risk management committees have a responsibility to look at risk in all of its devices, right? So risk is not necessarily about just risk avoidance. It's also classically, and we are in the insurance industry, it's about taking risk as well.
That's true. That's true.
And clearly, we've been taught, in this industry, as we have around the world, that this, things like pandemics, unexpected events, the consequences they have. And one of the consequences here has been the rapid acceleration and adoption of digital by consumers.
Yeah.
So now this is now a risk for many businesses, and it changes from, in my mind, and we talk to a lot of executives about this, is around business as usual is now a very risky strategy. Right? So if you're suggesting
that is correct,
you are taking an enormous amount of risk on board. So I think that dynamic has changed. So now it's a question of, okay, understand that. So what do we now need to do? How do we transform our existing business? What are the new opportunities that we need to go out to explore so that we can do our best, right? Do our best for our customers and all of our other stakeholders.
But there, and maybe if you allow me, and then we can end this this first test of going live. But I think what I see, and I'll do a little marketing for our ADI program, our mini MBA, right? Because I also see a lot of the insurance people that I speak with. There's a lot of, especially without saying too much, when you move up the hierarchy to senior level executives, I sense that they don't have the sufficient knowledge about new business models, new ways of working, new ways of working with processes, new tools and techniques that is actually available in the insurance industry, and I feel that's one of the reasons that they're also not too keen on going into it, because they don't have the basic understanding. They have a long year and successful history of business understanding, financial understanding, markets understanding, but now we're looking into something that is moving so fast where I sense that they are not comfortable, and they're not too comfortable, then they're also not taking any risks, right? So, and that's why I'm and this is the marketing part of it, right? That's why I'm so happy of being part of the ADI, right? Because this is what we are doing, right? We are actually helping executives and insurance professionals get that view on what is it in the market today and how is it likely to be in the future. So I think that's extremely important for everybody to consider as well.
No, absolutely, and that's been I think one of the interesting insights that we've had as we've run the TDI Academy is, I think the characteristic of a lot of our participants, if not all of our participants, is that they're all humble enough to want to learn, right? And you see some people come in who've got very little knowledge on digital, but they're ready to learn. They're coming to learn. We've seen others who are absolutely almost at the top of their game, but they're still coming in saying, actually, there's more to learn in this subject. And as you and I also know, you can't be an expert in digital insurance in all areas, right? You have to seed and bring in those experts. And that's part and parcel of what we do with the TDI Academy, to bring in those different industry experts. So for me, the question is to an executive, very skilled, seasoned executives, is, are you humble enough to want to learn about digital insurance? Because it's very open to everyone, and actually open to everyone in the organization to pick this up. And I think it's, we all know it's up there as number one, number two, or number three strategic issue in the boardroom at the moment.
Yeah, and I also think that we all have to accept that we are never done learning in the future, right? Because there we have in all business, and especially in insurance at the moment, right? There are so many moving parts, and if you sit down and say, okay, I'm done now, I know everything that I need to know about insurance, then it's not going to take many weeks before that's not true anymore, right? So I think it's extremely important that we all start taking up that mindset, right? Saying we actually have to take responsibility ourselves to keep on learning and keeping up to date with what's going on in our industry.
Yeah, and I've always, I say I'm proud to be a double geek, right? So, you've got the complexities of insurance, and then you combine that with the fast-moving and also complex world of technology, right? So bringing those two together, it's kind of like it's the ultimate challenge, right? And that's why I think it's fundamentally interesting, and it's a very exciting time to be an insurance professional. As I said, this fourth industrial revolution, the changes that are occurring, the acceleration, the double down, if you like, that COVID has brought. This is happening on our watch, right? And we have this great opportunity to make a difference and to move insurance along. And the reason why most people are in the insurance industry is because they think it's fundamentally an industry that does great things for people in time of high need, right?
I agree.
So we
Hugh, we have 2 comments, and I think just 5 seconds. I think Sharif, I hope I pronounced it correctly, asks if the regulatory constraints is one of the reasons that the insurance industry is not developing further. And okay, me being me, I would say that's a bad excuse, right? Because of course we are heavily regulated, but the regulations doesn't stop us from improving our internal processes. It doesn't stop us from working with external partners. So to some extent, yes, we have some considerations we have to make, but to say that it stops our development, I think that's more like a sleeping pillow. So you say, oh, we don't have to change because it's too difficult, right? So there's so many things you can do, and if you start working with the authorities, I mean, especially in the UAE, our authorities are extremely open to dialogue, because they also know, as you just said, Hugh, we have to change change with the world, and to continue offering insurance products that matches what the consumers they want, and so they're open to talk about this as well. So saying it makes it more complex, but I don't think it should. You can't say it stops us. What do you think about that one?
Huge topic. I definitely agree with you. If you're a digital mindset and a positive attitude are required to make any change, right? So if you come in to a discussion saying, well, the regulations stop me from doing this, and that's the end of the discussion, then you don't get very far, because you've got to find ways forward. And I've seen large organizations introduce things 5-6 years ago that the regulations, when you first look at them, you'd say, no, you can't do it. But they've engaged with the regulator, and the regulator is quite happy and open to have a positive discussion. I think part of the thing that insurers should do in this area is to separate out and differentiate their role with the regulator. One role, absolutely critical, is around compliance, right? Compliance with regulation, doing the right things, maybe correcting when you make a few mistakes. That requires a certain type of person and a certain relationship with the regulator. And then there's another area which is around exploring the art of the possible, and that's a different role. And if you don't separate those roles out, you're in big trouble, because you will end up mixing issues. So practically, that would be my practical advice for people who want to move on regulations. And I think that whole attitude, never say no for an answer, try and find a way, find some common ground, find out what the workarounds are. And also sometimes circumstances make a huge difference. So you look at how far...
now we have a different set of circumstances.
COVID, right? COVID has COVID has allowed us to solve problems at a much faster pace, and people have worked together, regulators and the insurance industry. And it's been very impressive. We shouldn't lose sight of that, right? And we do know that regulations are always, by definition, legacy, right? They're a product of previous experience. And when you move into an area where there's a little bit of a disconnect and you have to invent things from scratch, those old regulations quite often don't apply anymore. So it takes a little bit of time to build the space and the momentum to get the new regulations in place that are needed for modern ways of selling and producing insurance.
Cool. Let's Praveen, I've seen your question, and yes, of course, the future of insurance is module-based micro insurances that you can attach to any products being sold. It just requires the insurance companies being ready with their technological architecture, but that's a completely different topic. I think we'll take another day, but you're right, it's a good idea.
I think I've just been doing some research in that area, Palin. There's quite a number of insurtechs that are doing just that with embedded insurance, getting some really good results. None of them have an insurance license. They all operate under broking or FCA licenses at the moment.
But do you have that available on TDI's website now, or how do you publish this when you start finding these insurtechs?
So we've got an area called DIA, or Digital Insurance in Action, that we've had for many years, and we've been evolving that over the course of this year. And we've now got some volunteer insurtech analysts who are helping us. So they're going in, they're doing an outside-in analysis of insurtechs, doing a little PowerPoint report, then doing a little analyst profile, a little 10-minute view. So if you go to the website, thank you, Frederick. I can see you've posted that. Yeah, that's we're doing that. And we're hoping to do more of those as well. So so keep an eye open, Praveen, for a few in the space that you were just talking about, which will be coming out over the next few months.
Cool. Let's call it a day, Hugh. This actually ended up being a very, very good discussion. So thanks for picking your brain on this one. That was really interesting.
Thanks, Frederick. And it was really cool, right? We did completely unplanned, unscoped.
Of course.
And we said, come online and we'd talk about COVID. So for those that
I think we can continue. I'll stop now. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And Hugh, I'll see you later.
See you, everyone.